Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Apologies in advance, I have my RTX voice running. My PS4 is in rest mode, but it's still leaving a little bit of like fan noise right now. So I tried RTX voice so I could leave it on with Avengers being on there, but it sounds like a jet engine the entire time, so I didn't want to do that. That means if my voice gets too high or low, it's going to kind of cut off because my RTX voice, I haven't been training it as of late to recognize my voice when it hits those highs and those lows. So that might happen throughout this video, but it's better than hearing my jet engine of a PS4 go off the entire time. Mood check. I'm actually in a much better mood this week. I'm feeling a bit more motivated. So I'm thinking State of the Realm coming back this week. A couple of video ideas that I've just been sitting on, but just been waiting until my nerves were a little bit cooler. You know, before I've been going through this kind of recovery period as of late where again, I've been dealing with something personal, but it looks like an end might be in sight for that, so it's got me a little bit on a high right now, or at least on a high note. So hopefully this week I'll be feeling up to it. It'll be very much up to how I feel post-stream, since after a 7-hour stream, I usually eat lunch, and that's when I get to work. So that's like when I'm making this video right now. So that's where I'm at mentally right now. Sorry for the lack of State of the Realms, especially those of you who listen to it while you're at work, on the way to work, or just listen to it in general. So we're going to try to get that back on track, and hopefully we'll have a good time. So with that, let me get to thanking our sponsors, and we can move on to the show. Of course, you guys know over on Patreon, we've had a massive amount of support. I need to remember to update the list that's on the screen because I know there's a new name that's supposed to go on there. I believe it is a Shepherd that belongs on their new premium patron. So thank you to them for supporting. And also, of course, shout out to all the other patrons and everyone tuning into the video. And of course, our patrons of Darkness, Khuja, Janova, and Kurenai Oni. Thank you to all of you for your massive support, especially this last two, going above and beyond. Thank you. It's been a massive, massive help these last few months in particular. Now with that, let's get into the Q&A. Just get straight into it. That's an easy enough first question. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. How's it going, Mr. Happy? Hello, and I hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well, see? I just want to know what program to use to capture footage from in-game or on your computer. Thanks, mate, and keep up the good work. So I've got two recommendations for you. One is that you can use OBS to record natively. That's something I'm doing right now in order to record this sort of more vlog-style video. It's very easy. It doesn't require a whole lot of editing for things like this. Just have to make sure to cut out the blank space. However, for Final Fantasy XIV in particular, if I ever just need game footage and it is not being pulled directly off my Twitch streams, I will be using Mrhappy Action. It's a program you have to purchase, but it's by and far one of the best local game recording softwares that I've used. You can also, if you are using a capture card of any kind like an Elgato, use their built-in game capture, which functions better than one might think. It even has some pretty neat features that are especially good if you're recording much longer portions of footage and you need to go back and check stuff while you're in the middle of the recording itself. So Mrhappy Action, the Elgato capture software, if you're actually using the capture card in order to get your footage, or just using OBS natively, which is going to require quite a few settings tweaks in order to make it okay, I guess, for local recording. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Happy. Hope things how are you? Hope things are well. Wow, I really couldn't get through that. Hope things are well for you too. Things are going better for me. I'm in a better mood, like I was saying. My question is in regards to how you go about making your guide videos for Savage and Extreme. Do you have a group of friends / static that you team up with, or do you use the party finder to capture all the footage and discuss tactics mechanics? So this has actually gone back and forth. Most of the time I run with either a group of free company members or my current static at the time. And I will accrue footage like that. I'll get their perspectives, and I'll make a video within the first couple of weeks detailing how we managed to get through the fight. However, I do often find myself, for extreme trials in particular, going into the party finder later, seeing what people have kind of worked out on the first day or two, and what's kind of sticking in the party finder, and then I'll try to insert that into the guides. We did this especially with Memoria Misera and SOS. So it really depends on the fight, but it's going to be what it is most of the time. As for stuff like dungeons, it'll often just be a run with people and then a run with trust, and that'll be a-okay, done. Normal modes, I often don't make them for, because quite frankly, I encourage people to enter normal modes, wipe a few times if you have to, but get the experience, at least get, you know, some sort of blind experience so you can enjoy the story and not have to worry about, oh, you know, I didn't want to be spoiled, but, you know, I really didn't want to wipe my group either. It's normal mode. If you die a few times, it's honestly hilarious half the time to see people try to figure things out when they haven't seen them before, especially in more casual content, and I hope you can enjoy it from that perspective as well. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, Haps. Hope you've had a good week so far. I have, minus the fact the PC version of Avengers has been I had to start over on PS4 because I couldn't take all the crashes on PC anymore. Couldn't take the chance that it was destroying my PC slowly. Anyway, my question is, what do you expect from 5.35 Bajra update in terms of gear and item level, and just weapon upgrades or possibly armor? So we already know there is armor. They showed this to us in the last live letter. More interestingly, the armor, while I suspect it probably will have some value outside of Bajra itself, is actually going to be coming with Bajra effect on it. Now, if you didn't do Eureka, some gear had what was called the Eureka effect, essentially effects that had bonus elements inside of Eureka itself. Now, in the case of Eureka, it was actually elemental status and sometimes haste. So it would increase like of your stats, both offensive and defensively, regardless of how your Magicite was actually ticked, which made you way, way stronger. So much so that even before we had Echo, I could solo the Anubis mobs on my White Mage in Pagos once I had the final set from Hydatos and the Baldesion Arsenal. Now, that was not as common there. You really didn't see a whole lot of Eureka effect stuff outside of stuff that came from the very, very end. There's only a couple of them in Pagos, and it really wasn't a thing in Pyros either. So, what ended up happening was that, those of us who had gone to the Bajra were way stronger everywhere else in Eureka. Those of us who got into Baldesion early were stronger everywhere else in Eureka. I've been making that mistake a lot. However, in Bajra, the gear right from the get-go, the armor they've showed, it's going to have the Bajra effect on it, meaning that you can make yourself more powerful inside of Bajra itself before we actually get a Baldesion Arsenal equivalent, which is going to be important if you plan on progressing Baldesion Arsenal's equivalent in patch 5.45, which is when we're assuming it will be, because they said it would be in the 5.4 series. On top of that, we know there will be weapons. I expect item level 500 from the weapons. The armor, I expect 490 if it is actually effective outside of Bajra itself. Those are just predictions. We'll have to wait and see, probably in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Thank you for answering my question last week. Hello to you too, by the way. How did we get away from the hellos again? So here's a set of driftless Joy-Cons. All right, you've won my heart back. Not gonna lie. My question this time is, what are your thoughts on Nintendo having a limited time run on the Mario 3D collection? I personally think it's shady and hope they reconsider. So I guess this depends on what the entire story is. So the 3D collection itself, the bundle, they said will no longer be available. I think it's March 2021 or May 2021. One of those two. That sucks. It's creating forced. Nintendo has a big habit of doing this. They create not enough supply to meet their demand, so the demand is always high because they're not creating enough supply. This is trying to create kind of built-in FOMO, which means fear of missing out for those of you who aren't as cool and hip as me. And it's kind of lame to try and force people to like pressure them into making the purchase. Like, what is it really? Does it cost you so much to keep it on the store? I can understand no more physical releases, but what I think might happen in place, though, is I think the 3D collection as a bundle may end, but they might actually make all 3 of them available at that time. It's still kind of a lame thing to do because they're not being clear about it. If that is the case, I feel like they should have clarified it by now, or would have clarified it by now, that it's just the bundle itself and not the actual games going away. I have a feeling we're not going to be that lucky. It is going to be all 3 games going away, which, quite frankly, is a waste. I don't know. No matter how they handle this, what they've made public to people and what they've told people is not cool. It doesn't make any sense. All right, stop trying to create FOMO. They're just old games that you've brought back. Keep them there. Leave them there. Let people play them. It's stupid. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Happy, a good day to you. Good day to you as well. Question, I started in 5.2 and was wondering if we ever lose the option to obtain items, for example, Ishgard Restoration. I'm concentrating on leveling my classes, making good progress with 3 jobs to go. I know that PvP has mounts that are seasonal, and I've missed my chance for them. However, is there anything else we might miss out on going by historical updates? Thanks, Happy, and have an awesome day. It's actually a great question. I don't think the old mounts from Ishgard have gone away just yet, and I imagine even when Ishgard is completely restored, they won't get rid of people's abilities to earn Sky Builder scripts in order to purchase the items that are there. So other than the titles, which are 100% limited time, they're now based on, per patch, what they're actually going to be. Wait, did they? I don't remember what result they landed on. I think they landed on the titles being the same, but the achievement names being different. That's what they landed on for that. But as for anything else, no, I think PvP Seasons is the only thing that we can actually expect. There's a few question marks regarding Wondrous Tales, if that mount is going to go away when they update Wondrous Tales, or if they're just going to add more rewards to what's already there. It's a good question, and I'm not sure how they'll approach it, but I'll probably keep the mount and everything that's there, and then just add more stuff on top of it. I can't imagine them completely doing away with those mounts and the other items in there, because they're so ridiculous to get if you're only trying to get them from Unreal Trials and the Fox Hollows. So I think it's just PvP mounts, but I'm sure the comment section is going to find something that corrects me, because we've had like limited time runs of like promotions that they've run on the Lodestone. I think the Falcon mount was gone for some time until they brought it back as part of a Moogle Tombstone event, and then that went away, so I don't think there's any way to get that anymore. And then there's also things like pre-order bonuses like Aetheryte earrings, which aren't obtainable anymore. So there's a few things, but if, in regards to something, I guess, more direct as your mounts or your like PvP or Garo stuff that's already gone, I'm not 100% sure. So keep in mind, if you miss an actual seasonal event, the mount may not be on the Mog Station for another year. So it won't be gone forever, but you won't be able to get it for a while still. So that's, I think I'm on the ball with most of those things, but I'm sure the comment section will have more insight for you outside of the things that I've kind of lackadaisically mentioned here in my response. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, Mr. Happy, first time asker, long time viewer. I just have a couple of quick questions. Hello, welcome. Let's get you some answers. First off, you've mentioned that making Gil in 14 is easy, but I personally never had much luck making it. I find crafting too expensive and gathering too much of a time sink. Is there a happy medium between time versus money that I'm missing? The biggest mistake I think people think of in Final Fantasy 14 is they think too actively about an activity they need to do to make Gil versus looking at activities that could benefit them in other ways that tangentially earn them Gil. A great example is the hunt. Now, I talk about this a ton. I've got a video on it. I've got multiple videos on it, as a matter of fact. And the hunt has been one of my best money-saving and money-making sources throughout all these years, along with Blue Mage technically, because it uses the Allied Seal currency. I use Allied Seals and Centurio Seals to never have to pay for teleports. Now, that's not making Gil, but saving Gil is sometimes just as good. On top of that, from the Shadowbringers hunts, I can buy things like materia. I can get Phantasmagoria tomestones to sell Phantasmagoria mats, and I weekly cap off of it anyway. I'm literally sitting on 996 cracked Stella clusters. Those are 1 grade 8 materia per Stella cluster, and I could sell them for 10, 20, 30k depending on the season. Probably in 5.4 I could sell them for even more than that, and I'm sitting on almost 1,000 of them. Plus I'm sitting on like 90 something grade 8 like determinations, and like 80 something critical hit rates, and like 30 or 40 something direct hit 8s, plus all the 7s that I have. And the Phantasmagoria mats are like, you know, 4 to 5 to 6k a piece depending on the day, and I get like 100 of those per stack of Phantasmagoria. On top of that, sometimes I just run maps. If you don't want to actually run maps as content, you can go gather a map daily and just sell the map on the market board for just a little bit of money. I get some from the challenge logs occasionally, 10, 20,000 here, you know, nothing too major, but it adds up over the course of every week on week action that I get. And that's it. I don't ever focus on making Gil. I just play the game and I make Gil from the activities that I do off really basic things like Desynthesis or Phantasmagoria or Nuts or Stella clusters or Planet clusters, or I save money. You know, it's all about that for me. It's not about sitting down and crafting. Secondly, I'd love to get into streaming 14 with no prior experience with streaming. Is there a piece of content you would recommend that's easy to talk about with viewers and fun to watch? People think about this a little bit too much. You kind of just, the first step with streaming is just to start playing the game live. There's really not an activity you need to focus on, because quite frankly, when you're first starting out with streaming, almost nobody's going to find you anyway. The discovery options across the various platforms are all very tough. So you need to start with something really, really basic and just play the game on stream. Don't worry about what you're actually playing. Don't worry if it's crafting, gathering, which it probably won't be based on yours, if it's Savage, Extreme, Normal, Alt character, New character, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You need to focus on you as the streamer and not what the contents of your stream actually are. Because if you can't get yourself to even go live, it doesn't matter what you play, you're not even willing to take the first step into actually live streaming and sharing your experience with other people on the internet. So my first advice is don't even think about that. Play the game as you normally would when you log in, and be willing to either sit in silence or talk to yourself a whole lot, because that is the very big reality of just starting out with streaming. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey Haps, hello. Hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well also. Sounds kind of redundant when I say it over and over again, but I do mean it. My question is regarding your thoughts on the current state of gear progress on new raid patches. I know crafted gear helps to gear up quickly for early prog, but it feels bad that it is 10 item levels over the previous BIS, making it pointless to worry about BIS outside of speedruns or ultimates, which, you know, if you're not doing that, then yeah, you lose some of the bet. Also, I feel normal raid gear should not have such strict weekly lockouts when it has the same item levels crafted, which is available instantly. Okay, so there's a lot. Actually, this is actually a pretty major discussion to be had, and one that I should probably shorten for this. Gear in Final Fantasy XIV doesn't matter outside of one activity, and that is ultimate. You need to reach a bare minimum in Savage that is so easy to reach it might as well not exist. And from that point on, gear is your reward. It is your speed run gear. It is the thing that makes it running everything else easier. It makes the thing that you just did that you obtained the gear in easier. But it is very much the reward, and is not the method with which you should be approaching getting to new content, I suppose is the best way to put it. It's only there to facilitate you accessing the content, and other than that does not serve much a purpose other than glam. So it realistically doesn't matter whether the crafted is higher, because not everybody goes out of their way to buy it. That's the reason why the normal mode gear is the same item level, because they balance the idea of the average player who doesn't sit on 189 million gil like I do, and doesn't have the spare gil to just throw at sets after sets after sets. Maybe they don't craft, maybe they don't gather either, so that's not really an option for them regardless. And they actually want to collect the normal mode, or they want it for glam every week, and they want to collect it for that reason. It's kind of like me with the 24-mans, I suppose. So that kind of covers all of it, but the biggest thing is that gear just doesn't matter in Final Fantasy XIV. Whether that's a good or a bad design is a discussion for another time. I'm personally of the option that I kind of like that just doing the content is the most rewarding thing I can do, and that the gear, while it's nice to get and it means that I can parse higher or whatever, kill the boss easier, it's only the reward and not the method with which that determines my value to everyone else in the game. But it means that if they were to kind of get rid of what you're saying, and like the crafted gear being 10 item levels over the previous BIS, odds are what would likely change is you'd have the next tier of normal mode gear, or the next tier of normal mode gear and the next base tombstone item level be the same as the previous BIS, and then only raise the item level by 10, which would lead to, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it leads to people feeling less excited about their gear upgrades in a given patch. So it's a pro and a con kind of thing. So this is really a matter of preference on this. I completely understand not liking that you just rated for all this gear and that now you're going to go buy a bunch of crafted stuff a little bit later. But it's just a matter of using the gear in the patch that is relevant, you know, and using it to make everything easier, and then worrying about it all again the next time an even numbered patch comes around. It's not there to be there for a long period of time, I guess is the way to put it. Now with that Bajda gear though, that's going to be useful in the future most likely, so you might want to grab that. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Happy, how you doing? Me? I'm doing, how you doing? I'm doing all right. Quick question, what is your opinion on delaying the release of Savage content by 1 week after the release of the MSQ? I can tell you as a content creator, I would much prefer it. Not even just for the MSQ. There's a lot of guides that I end up not being able to put out in the first few days / week because of the way that things are actually done. So I would, of course, love it from a content creator standpoint. I'd love to be able to, the second the MSQ launches, to be able to do it slow, watch all the cutscenes, you know, not have to think about, oh, I got to go do Savage for 2, 3, 4 days before I can do all this. Oh, I got to skip all the normal mode cutscenes too because I got to get to Savage, you know. Oh, you know, they have this new EX trial. Cool, I'm not going to have to learn it until after I've already beaten Savage, which is really weird, and then I'll have to go back and do that anyway. Or maybe we'll stop and do it in the middle of Prague, and then, you know, I don't have to care about it either. Sounds like my cat is getting comfortable inside of his little tube, but I think with RTX voice on, you might not be able to hear it. But I can hear it, and it's very distracting. So I would definitely like Savage to be delayed by 1 week. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that won't, but and for selfish reasons, I would definitely be on the side of delaying it by a week. Yeah. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Apps, long-time watcher. Me? Don't remember? Come on now. Anyway, I've been running my trial roulettes every day because I think it's fun to practice various roles in 8-man content. I can't help but notice, so this seems to happen regularly. All of the leveling 8-man primals do not have an item level requirement to join. What do you think this is the reason for something like this to still be in the game? It seems like a major oversight when leveling dungeons of item level requirements now, and is usually a huge issue in fights like Susano or Titania, with players dying to every single mechanic that does damage. I didn't know that. I mean, you've pretty much answered the question. It shouldn't be that way. There's not really much more to add to that. I didn't realize that was a thing for the normal mode trials. So it shouldn't be, and they should have minimum level. There's my answer. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hello. Did the dev team Yoshi P state how they will handle new skills, spells, etc. with upcoming expansions? I'll take Black Mage. Its rotation is pretty solid currently. We actually have this discussion fairly frequently on the show because I think it was either last week or the week before, we had a discussion where every job hits a critical point where any changes to it would almost be, you hit like a plateau where it can only kind of go tangentially to the side, and it can't really get any better, but it can definitely get worse by falling off the ends. Black Mage, I've expressed concerns about that, and honestly, Stormblood Bard, I expressed concerns going going into Shadowbringers as well. There's nothing for them to state. It's going to be the same thing every time. They're going to look at the existing spells. They're going to see how they want to spread them out across the leveling, all the levels that you have in the game, especially if they raise the level cap again, which they almost definitely will, if they don't do a level squish at some point. And they'll add some new skills to make some flashy new stuff, maybe fix up a complaint or two with some of the changes that they may have. And that'll be it. And they'll ruin some jobs, and some jobs will be like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever. And then they'll balance it for the next, 7 to 8 months. And then we'll all complain about super minor things because we don't have much to complain about anymore. But that one thing is really freaking annoying, and we need to stop it. So that's it. It's going to be the same approach they have every expansion. Just they'll have to approach it based on the way they were balanced in the expansion prior, as opposed to, not worrying about how it was 4-6 years ago. Oh boy, this one's got a lot of text. Hey, Hab, short-time viewer. Welcome. Short-time viewer. New viewer. First-time asker. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your coffee. Oh, my coffee is... 2 of coffee left. I gotta put... Oh, this should still be kind of warmish. Maybe I could just drink it right out of this. Drink all my coffee today. What's wrong with me? I'll drink it after this. Might be a long question incoming. Yeah, there's a lot of text. I got in a rating with E1 to 3 and finished this rating tier with E8. Shiva was a massive headache in the party finder. I found that there was an option in the Savage fight under first phase or second phase. Thought this was great because you could skip a massive roadblock when progging. Fortunately, I was bamboozled. Do you think a feature like this would be useful, especially since Savage and Ultimates appear to be getting longer and harder as time goes on? But it wouldn't have to give loot, of course, if you complete it. I'm thinking of some hypothetical headache fight that had Light Rampant 1 at the start and Tsunami 2 Black Smokers at the end. Found in party finders roll the dice with PF players that pass a mechanic. Each time you join a new party finder group, you roll another dice. I mean, you basically described pugging in general. You described raiding in general. Even sometimes raid groups can be a bit of a toss-up on that regard. I'm not a fan of this idea only because you're going to have to beat an entire fight as that fight. If you were to start a fight from the halfway point and you do your opener from that halfway point, for example, you now no longer know all of your proper buff timings because not every fight has a massive give me all my skills back time like Shiva's cutscene does. Some of them do, and more frequently they have been as of late. But it's not really great from practicing how your job functions across the entire fight design. Even if you're thinking, oh, I just want to see the mechanics, I don't even want to get loot. I feel like it takes a lot away from the raiding experience when you can split up a 14-minute fight into 2 7-minute fights, for example, as opposed to overcoming the entire 14-minute fight, which if even under your own circumstances here, you'd have to do regardless. So it's all about getting that run down to a single time and practicing having honestly, the biggest thing is you need to be able to have Steel Resolve to survive 14, 15, 16, in the case of Ukop, 18-minute encounters. And if you're not practicing that nervous tick that some people get when they're going for their first clear and it's like the last 10% of the boss and it's like the final mechanic and you've done it a million times and it's not that hard, but you're freaking the fuck out because this could be the one. That's an important part of raiding. If you were to practice the entire second phase and then get to that endpoint, land the killing blow, but you have no idea how you lined everything up with the rest of the fight to actually make it happen because you skipped half of it, there's a lot lost from the experience in that regard because you've already seen it, you've already practiced it, you've already beaten it, and the odds are you're going to clear it with kind of just an ease of your conscience and not an actual accomplishment, I suppose, if that's the best way to put it. It doesn't really sound like the best way to put it, but it's what came out of my mouth, so we're going to roll with that. So no, I'm not a fan of the idea, especially not for ultimates, really not for ultimates. If you're not ready to do an ultimate encounter that's like 15, 16, 18 minutes long, breaking it down into parts should not be the solution to getting you to improve in that encounter. So it's a big note from me, dog. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, all caps. That's a new one. Hi there, Haps. Hello. Hope you're having a wonderful day and are starting to cool in the straight heat wave. Yeah, I think it's like 80 something today. 80. It's 80 flat right now. Do you think Square Enix will ever update the engine that 14 is running on? From my understanding, the game ran on the original engine that the original 14 was created on, and the coding for it's really bad. So it's not the exact same engine. It's a modified crystal something engine. I can't remember what it's called. It's a modified version of another engine that they used. And they borrowed a lot of code from 1.0. That's the big thing. It's not so much that it's sitting on the same engine. It's actually a new engine from the original that's based on another engine they use within the company. But the thing is they had to borrow a lot of code, which created a lot of technical debt, basically to finish the game in under 3 years, because that's how quickly the 2.0 for Final Fantasy XIV was actually developed. I think it was like 2 years and 11 months or something like that. They had to borrow whatever code they could and then integrate it into the new engine. And when you do that with your foundation, with a game that was fundamentally flawed, you run into a bunch of limitations that otherwise may not have happened if you didn't have to do that. It's one of the few parts of Final Fantasy XIV's redemption story that never really fully took off, because it's been to some degree held back the entire time. And it's not even, honestly, you're talking about console being the reason it's held back. Console was never the reason it was held back. PS3 was mostly about the fact that it lacked memory of any kind. But a lot of the limitations we had in place were not because of the PS3's lack of graphics or anything like that. It was just because it was just based on how quickly they had to make the game and what they could fit and finish in a reasonable amount of time. And that's still somewhat of a limitation because they want to keep to a schedule and they don't want to have to completely. Oh, no, it's just the shadows moving. It looks kind of weird. It's a mixture of actually a bunch of things. So it's hard to even label one thing. But I don't want to say no to this, but don't expect it to come anytime soon. Updates to our current engine or creating a DX12 version of the game are more likely than an entirely new engine from scratch. Maybe one day, but probably not anytime soon. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hello. How you doing? I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Long-time viewer, first-time asker. Just 2 quick questions. As someone who plays so many games, how do you keep yourself updated with all of them? I don't. You know how many games I miss or have to create, like, just the bare minimum reason to not play it? Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning came out earlier this week, or I guess last week by the time you guys are seeing this. I mean, it's Sunday, actually. It's last week regardless. Anyway, regardless. And I got a review code for it for PC. I had a key provided to me, and I opened it, and I went to the resolution options, and it had a full screen option. It was either disabled, which would mean windowed mode, exclusive, or borderless windowed. Now, I play my games windowed at 1920 by 1080. That is the case because I have a 1440p monitor. I can place the game in a portion of it and run other things in the background so I can keep track of certain things within eyesight without having to look over to my other monitor like this. And it's nice to just be able to quickly shift my eyes and see a couple things. Now, that being said, there were no resolution options for borderless windowed and no resolution options for windowed. And the game natively launched at like 480p, and it was ridiculous. So what did I do? I said, you know what? I'm not going to request another code. I'm not going to buy it for PS4. I'm just not going to play it. When they add resolution options to the PC version, I'll play it. If they don't, I never will. Bottom line, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to worry about trying to get it on another platform. I just can't be asked to. I just don't care. If you don't have the time to care about resolution options for a game, then I don't care to, give you the time of day. Honestly, Avengers for PC doesn't have them either, and it really grates my gears. But at the very least, it launches it like pretty close to 1920 by 1080, so it's a really quick fix. But the fact that Kingdoms of Amalur launched at like 480 on PC was ridiculous. And every time I open it, I have to drag it to 1080p because there are no fucking options to do it manually. And that's not like I can use the Steam override to automatically launch it at 1920 by 1080 because it's a third-party game. As you can tell, I feel a lot of ways about this, especially because the original Kingdoms of Amalur didn't have that problem and did have resolution options. Whatever the fucking reason, I look for reasons like that to not play games nowadays because keeping up with all of them is hard. That's the answer to my question. As for the site I use to find the latest patches, I really only keep up with Final Fantasy XIV. Sometimes I keep up with Dauntless, which I'm going to be playing again this week, I believe. Sometimes I keep up with Temtem, for example, and sometimes I catch news from like random other things on social media, but I so seldom keep up to date with news about anything other than Final Fantasy XIV and kind of Final Fantasy XI. Secondly, do you have a rough idea when 5.4 will drop? I would guess December 1st or 8th. Those are my predictions, and we'll just have to wait and see. Next question, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, Happy. Hope you're doing well. I am. Thank you for asking. I hope the same for you. Please get all the rest you need. We'll be here when your new content is ready. Long-time viewer, first-time asker. Let's get to the answer then. I have a question regarding Blue Mage. So I started leveling Blue a few days ago and having a hard time getting spells that are in dungeons, specifically finding other players to run dungeons, unsynced, let alone other Blue to run it synced. And without these more powerful spells, I can see that leveling at higher levels will become an issue. Right now I'm spamming 1,000 needles and mobs die in 2-3 hits. I'm not sure that level 50, 60 mobs will be as cooperative. They are not. I can guarantee you that you definitely want some of those spells. What is your advice to new Blues starting out at this time of the patch cycle in leveling and getting spells? Now, first I would say talk to your FC. That's normally the best bet, even if someone has to run you through some things unsynced and you just have to bite the bullet and not take that 100% learn rate from being synced. That's normally your first bet. You find someone else who also needs spells, and if you both can't do it synced, then you take turns unsyncing it for each other and you make a night out of it. My other recommendation is to slowly accrue spells that allow you to cheese stuff and then work your way up to the rest of them. Now, primals are probably the most annoying batch because you almost certainly want to do those in a synced Blue Mage party, and even going into the party finder is quite tough. So again, yeah, FCs and link shells are really the best way to go. I think there's probably Discord groups for this as well. I'm willing to bet there are. I'm just not privy to them. Maybe somebody else is, and I am not. So, that's unfortunately the best advice that I have, because it is very, very tough if you do not have friends who are invested in Blue Mage or even interested in Blue Mage altogether. You end up just kind of not picking up the primal spells until there's a new Blue Mage update, and then normally you can find some people who are trying to do the same thing as you and catch up kind of late, and that might be what you have to do. So, if you have to do them unsynced in order to pray to the RNG, go ahead and do it, but, it's still going to be tough. All right, I think the last of the questions, we're going to do a little bit of a lightning round. I have to remind myself, because I read through quite a few comments. Some people tell me to get rest. A really fun comment, ain't is not being I'm not, you're not, he's not, she's not. Basically, yeah, I forgot about that question from last week. I actually like that. Ain't just means not. It's not an abbreviation of 2 words, which would make sense because no, it doesn't. It's just another word for not. I like that. I'm going to go with that. I ain't, I'm not. Yeah, there you go. Somebody talking about extreme savage level 4-man content. I talk about that a lot, man. You can't do a whole lot that isn't just a shit ton more healing with 4 people. You lose a lot of the ability to actually make interesting mechanics, which is why the idea of Mythic Plus generally works in the 5-man parties in WoW. Because 5 people is actually a better number to work with for mechanics, especially for dungeon bosses, but it's also just a better number for dealing with the complete randomness that comes from Mythic Plus, dealing with whatever the modifiers may actually be. So with 3 people, you actually lose a lot of that, which is why the closest you get is stuff to like the really high floors on Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High, which I'd completely support more content that's like that without the sheer number of hours it takes to actually get there. So people who both like and dislike the beard. Don't worry, I gotta shave my head and this beard. It's both gotta go, man. Let's see, what else was there? There's the making guild question. There's a question about mannequins using retainer sales slots. I literally don't do anything housing related. And I'm kind of surprised to hear that they work that way, and it's kind of silly that they do. So I kind of hope that they undo that, because I would eventually like to, when we're allowed to do wall-mounted weapons, to also have like some sets on some retainers or on some mannequins there. So I'd much prefer if that were to be possible, as opposed to it being retainer sales slots. Housing dummies have all sorts of different levels. I don't know why they do that. It's not like it really matters for much of anything anymore. They could just make them all level 1, I suppose. The only thing that matters is if it's like a level 81 and you're level 70, and then you miss because it's a higher level than you. But yeah, you're right. That is kind of weird. I don't know why they don't just make them all level 1 beast from X-Men. Yo, you know. Let's see. Maybe first time asker. There was a follow-up question. Oh, this was another follow-up from last week about the dot snapshotting. But the Astro dot lags visually and is only visible on the boss when Emboldened dropped off. It's going to be when when the animation actually registers the effect, as far as I remember. So yeah, it's going to be when the animation when the effect gets registered on the target. So as soon as it appears on them, that's when it's gonna kick in, as far as I remember, unless something's changed, because they've changed a lot of the timings on stuff like buff and debuff timing. So I'd be open to being wrong about that. Looking like the boy from Jumanji. Hey, forgot, I haven't seen that movie in ages, when he starts becoming the werewolf or whatever. Dude, I could have swore there were more questions in here. Mortal Shell comment that it gets better. Mortal Shell got worse towards the end, because it starts off kind of interesting and then it just kind of ends. And I don't know. It's probably because of the way that I beat it, though. I went back and did it again with another weapon type, and I got through it pretty quick, though. I don't know. I think Mortal Shell doesn't ever really fully take off. It's got a few issues, but a lot of it is just the sheer size of the game never really gives it much room to grow. Previous expansion, why don't we have a hub area with mounts? They just decided they didn't want to. That's really not a good answer for that, I don't think. I guess we kind of got one with what's the name of the area for the resistance weapons? What's the name? Gongos? I think it is Gongos. Can we use mounts there? I don't even remember if we can do that there. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just decided it was too annoying. I don't know. Or that they weren't big enough to warrant doing it. Crystarium's pretty big. Yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. Unfortunately, it's not much of a thing. Sorry for the question last week. Good week with the channel. I was harassed by one of your viewers. I gotta go back and look at that. Hold on, because that's hold on. I'm pulling up last week's vid over here. Let's see here, because that's not cool. Oh, you asked the question about the yokai medals and when the Casterverse. Yeah, I said it was already out. Oh, I asked you over that. I just answered it was already out. What? I have 3,000 videos on my channel. You missed a video. It's not the end of the world. Oh my god, whoever this person is, are you blind here? He did that? You're an idiot? Yo, what's wrong with you? Just be alone. They missed me uploading a video. They didn't see the video. It's not the end of the fucking world. Jesus Christ, there's this guy going off. Just losing his mind. I'm telling you to use your eyes, you idiot. Bro, that's the dumbest shit I've ever read. Just because somebody didn't see something doesn't mean they're a fucking idiot. Oh my god, I can't stand people. Get away. Get out of my community. I don't want it. I don't want people like that. It's just, oh my god. Well, hopefully that person enjoyed the Casterverses when they found it, since now they know it's there and they can go enjoy it, and that's the end of it, and it doesn't need to be a thing anymore. I don't understand why people sometimes get involved in my comment section in ways that is not useful and or appropriate and or mature. But it doesn't surprise me at the same time. It's the internet. Where do you think? I'd love to hear predictions for 6.0. There's nothing to base it on. I don't like making baseless predictions. Stormblood 2. That's all I'll say without going too much into spoilers. Stormblood 2. That's my prediction for the expansion. Why do people think there'll be apothecary or chemist? So there's a major story point that takes a lot of effort to explain how an apothecary works or the story behind an apothecary. And I don't want to get into spoilers because I didn't do a little spoiler warning, but I think it has something to do with a particular character in the story that they're referencing, not the characters that are talking, the characters that is being referred to. That being said, this is just because they went so heavy-handed on talking about it. It's the main reason why people are expecting it. On top of that, salve maker, chemist, apothecary, it's not an uncommon job or RPG trope to have a potion mixer of some kind that can participate in combat, even if the lore that we have in 14 doesn't entirely support that being a possibility. It's been a heavy request for years to have something along those lines, and people are taking that heavy-handed approach to talking about it in the main scenario as some sort of sign, especially because we are definitely expecting a healer to come in the next expansion. It doesn't so much matter that these positions have always been filled by conjurers for those positions, because even Astro is technically, actually, no, a lot of the healer types have actually, a lot of the ones we don't have bases on Conjury. Geomancer has bases in Conjury. As you've stated, some of the potion makers have bases in Conjury. And just because that is a base in Conjury doesn't mean that it can't be its own thing. That's the biggest thing. You know, you can always look for lore reasons as to why we don't think it's going to happen, why it's not likely. But at the end of the day, they can write it and change it however we want. People, thought we were going to just get the Garlean Gunblades as like a job because we already had them in the game. By the time we got Gunblades, we got completely different ones. So it ended up not really being a good basis for believing it would happen. That didn't change the fact that it did happen, even if it was different than the way that the game had shown us and the way the game had been presenting Gunblades all those years. So I think it's reasonable to be like, yeah, well, based on the lore, it doesn't really seem likely, or I don't think it seems likely, but it's always possible because we're not the developers of the game. And that's a fact. That's something that a lot of people tend to forget. We are not the developers of this game. We are the consumer. We are the players. We are just the peons of the game, as far as I'm concerned. What's your favorite Final Fantasy and why? 6. And because I just like the story. I like the story, I like the villain, like Kefka. And as much as I kind of wish there were less characters and they focus more on the narrative, for some of them, they do a pretty good job of juggling the characters that are there, except for the few that are at the end that they just kind of throw on just to have more party members. With Ivalice fitting into 14's lore, do you think they could do the same with 10? Quite frankly, I don't know that I'd want them to. 10's story is very particular to Spira, and I feel like even if it's just a portion of the world that's having this sort of concern, I don't know if I'll ever really be fully attached to it. Ivalice was really deeply integrated into Garlean lore and history, and is likely to be something that will continue to affect the resistance weapon. In fact, it has to, because it's forced that you finish the Stormblood Alliance raids. Whereas the Fear of 10, I don't know that that's really, I don't know. Nothing feels like it's gonna it's not gonna like register. Also, I want to see more original stories. Like I love when they take Final Fantasy 14 lore and they integrate it really well, like with Crystal Tower and Ivalice. I hate when they do it poorly, like when they did with Omega, and kind of along the way Nier is going, even though it's not taking 14 lore. But I miss original storylines that use classic characters but aren't entirely based off of what happened, like the Binding Coil, like Alexander, not like Omega. That's a completely original story. Or even going to the Shadows of Mach. It used Diablos, but it wasn't like a complete copy pasta of another story, you know what I mean? So I just miss those, and I want to go back to them, and I really want to see what they're capable of. Why can we no longer equip wands and small shields as a weapon for mages? They don't like having two different equip slots for a lot of equipment. In fact, even Paladin, they said, if not for the fact that people want to glam a sword and a shield separately, they'd probably have combined them as an item already. Because having the two different items drop is just a pain. Quite frankly, I think they should just make a coffer drop. It should say the Paladin, like the whatever content Paladin coffer, as opposed to it being two separate items, because the number of times I've won a shield and lost a sword, or vice versa, on like an EX Primal, is very high. So I don't think it's very likely that we'll ever see the one-handed wand and shield come back for White Mage or Black Mage ever again. I just don't think it'll happen. As for, let's see, what's this one? This one said, Senor Feliz Lunes. Do you have plans making a short video review about the game based on your experience? It's going to be such a skewed video. Like, I have a major bias towards this game. So much so that even though I will complain about things I don't like or openly state there's things I'm not interested in, that even if I were to do a review video, it's like, hey, here's a review from a guy who's been playing for 7 years and is literally just going to tell you how much he loves everything. Obviously, it wouldn't end up like that, but it feels like it would. If you know what I mean. So I feel like my bias kind of stops me from doing a fair review on Final Fantasy 14. And realistically, a consumer deserves a fair review. And it looks like that was the last one. I don't know why I thought I had more than that. Man, that really upsets me that somebody... Guys, if you're going to participate in my comment section, let me be clear about one thing. If somebody asks a question that you think is dumb, or you think it makes them an idiot, just don't say anything. You can just be like, you know what the response to that comment could have been? He's already made it, here's the link. And the other person would say, thank you. And they'd say, you're welcome. And that could have been the end of that. I'm very upset that that is something that happened in one of my videos. And I'm sure it's not the first time, but it's the first time I've seen someone comment that they were done because of a comment. It's just, ugh, God. What is the world these days? What is the world? On that note, though, that's going to be the end of the lightning round, and that's going to be the end of this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. If you have a question for next week, be sure to throw it in the comment section of the video below, and I'll do my best to answer it for next week's video. But on that note, I got to get recording because I'm feeling strong again. I at least want to get something really basic done, so that way I can get back into the groove of things. Or I could go do Avengers. One of those two things is going to happen after this is done. But thank you for watching. Thank you to our patrons for supporting our patrons of darkness, Khuja, Cross on Jenova, and Kurenai Oni. And I'll see you all next week, and hopefully a little bit during this week, because we want to get back into the groove of things. Until then, you have a good one. Take care.